We had quite the set of OTA changes this week for Marvel Snap, and it would appear that news of Mr. Fantastic's first step's death has been greatly exaggerated, even by yours truly. Let's go ahead and dive on into the deck list that I've been enjoying the most, as well as the ones that are performing the best by the metrics on the Untap tracker since the changes dropped on Thursday. As always, we kick off with some of my personal favorite decks I've been playing after the OTA. The first of which is a Victoria Hand Frigga Shell featuring Moon Girl as an additional way to double up our cards. One piece of innovation that I've really enjoyed in this particular deck list is the inclusion of Luna Snow. This archetype has always been pretty resource hungry, and you can always spend that energy efficiently in most of your games. And the fact that she's a 3/6 means that when you copy her with Moon Girl and have Quinjet in play, she ends up being a 2/6 for you, or if you surge her, she's a 2/7, which is a pretty efficient spread of stats on the last turn of the game. I absolutely love leveraging Quake as a tech card in this style of shell, because it's something that you're pretty happy to play out proactively when you need to manage your hand size early, but she causes just absolute blowouts with so many locations in the mid to late game, winning in spots that absolutely no other card in Marvel Snap can. My second Jeff's pick this week is one that I found on the Untapped tracker, but it doesn't quite have strong enough stats to call it a high potential or top performer, but it was still a ton of fun. It really felt like I was playing Marvel Snap in a brand new way, leveraging both Elixir and Phoenix Force to create kind of this reanimator style shell that I've never experienced in Snap to date. If you want to see this one in action, it's a highlight on my secondary daily deck uploads channel for Marvel Snap, linked in the comments down below. If you happen to have all of these cards, it is totally fun to play, but it's also not a particularly budget-friendly list, because a lot of very narrow specific cards like Kid Omega and Elixir are pretty necessary here for it to operate at remotely optimal efficiency. As we move into the high potential category, we have deck lists on Untap that have really promising stats, albeit in smaller sample sizes so far. They could be the next big thing, but they could also fall a little flat as wider audiences pick them up from highlights like this one. This first deck list, Domino Galactus First Steps, is one that really made me raise an eyebrow. I had mostly resigned myself to not playing with the new season pass card anymore because I just wasn't finding it very interesting, but this build has a lot of really sweet things going on, leveraging Domino's recent fourth extra point to allow her to be a herald for Galactus early to get him some extra stats is really clean, and this allows the deck list to be built to be skewed incredibly top heavy, so that way your Mole Man is generating 5 and 6 power rocks fairly often. These rocks work well with Wave, who can not only put out a 6 drop early, but also sets you up to play both rocks plus a 6 on the last turn of the game, allowing you to play not just Galactus, but also stats in other places, making for a lot more interesting board states. You have Electro along with Circe or Blink to remove its body from the board after its fact as an alternative ramp strategy as well that can let you play a 6 plus a single rock on that last turn as well. I really love the inclusion of Kyera in this shell because there's a lot of tech cards running around everything from Shang-Chi to Teenage Warhead, and protecting your big sixes at the end of the game is pretty important. Her protection also means that in the games where you have extra energy from something like Electro or ramp it out with Wave, you don't have to worry about them blowing away your big thing that you played out ahead of time. Another interesting Galactus shell that caught my eye on the Untap tracker was this Pixie variation. The energy costs in this one are interesting to me because they're not playing the high density of 1 and 2 energy cards that we typically see to leverage Pixie's effect to her fullest. Basically, this archetype is saying, okay, if we get a 3 energy cost onto something like Galactus or Emperor Hulkling with a good ability, that's going to be good enough to have strong cube equity that we need absolutely massive blowouts of our cards having incredibly cheap costs. This is another core leveraging War Machine as a way to make Infidot play down ahead of time, and it is playing Ebony Maw as a singular one since War Machine mitigates that card's downside. It makes me smile to say Domino's name not just once, but twice in today's Dex Roundup, and we have a Wiccan Ajax core playing Quicksilver and Domino as your guaranteed 1 and 2 energy plays. The big upside to this is it allows us to have an incredible density of high impact 3 energy cards, so your copy of Malekith is going to be quite strong, never drawing you a 1 or a 2, always effectively letting you play out 7 energy worth of cards for just 4. This means in games where you don't have Quicken, Malekith, and Anti-Venom can provide a lot of energy cheating in a roundabout way, giving you big bursts of stats it's going to be difficult for your opponent to keep up with. I really like that this deck has multifaceted game plans. You can with Ajax being big numbers, but you also have things like Diamondback and Man-Thing that can put stats on the board as well as speed in case Ajax is nowhere to be found. Scream is popping up back in the untapped stats for the first time in a little bit, with the Batroc, the Leaper Shell being the best performing among them. Batroc is an incredibly potent scaling 1 energy card that, alongside Silk or Sam Wilson's Shield, can often hit 8 or sometimes even 10 points of power over the course of the game. And Hydra Stomper, getting +1 for every time one of your cards moved over the course of the game, scales up to metrics that have been really impressed me alongside Sam and Batroc. This deck list will keep your opponent on their toes, making it so any cards they play out over the course of the game rarely stay in the spot where they were to begin with. Up next, we have a really slick take on Spectrum Ongoing. We've seen a number of these archetypes over the last month, thanks to the Golden Gauntlet winner incorporating Cannonball alongside Mercury, since Mercury is a really efficient ongoing card. But this particular deck list that had really potent stats on Untapped is the first I've seen leveraging Astral Projection alongside Cannonball and Spectrum as the only 2 ongoing targets. I think this is the way for Astral Projection to be the most powerful, having minimal high impact targets in your deck, so that way you're guaranteed to get a specific card when you play it out. Because Mercury can move, it means you can even go Mercury into Astral Projection, kill something on turn 3 if Cannonball is your only on reveal in your hand, and then you can move her somewhere else over the course of the game to Cannonball something in another spot afterwards. This deck list also gets to play a glut of disruptive cards like ongoing decks are known for, with Gorgon and Cosmo allowing you to mess up people in different ways, and Goliath, Captain America, Captain Carter, and Ant-Man all providing reasonable stats on your side of the board in case your disruption isn't enough to take you home. Similar to the previous deck list that we looked at, this Victoria Hand ongoing core gets you big stats with Victoria, giving your generated cards extra numbers. Infinity Ultron at the top end of your curve, providing you with stones that can even cost 1 energy thanks to Quinjet, and still getting to leverage that Mercury Cannonball combo for a dash of interaction. I will say it's kind of interesting to me that this deck list floating around wasn't able to find room for Frigga, but I suppose there's only so many slots in your deck when you're trying to fit in ongoing synergies on top of everything else. Moving along to our top performers category, the end of turn deck took multiple nerfs in stride and is still one of the best performing decks on Untapped for a number of the most competitive slices that I typically look at to build these videos. I will say that Fantasticar is more present in the builds than we saw last month, with the Prodigy game plan being a little bit more secondary. I would say Havoc losing some points of power makes the extra stats that Fantasticar can provide a little bit more important, and this particular build that had the best stats on Untapped early on, leveraging Marvel Boy also for another way to get big stats on the board. Remember, if you Prodigy Invisible Woman and then get 4x extra turn effects at the end of the game, you'll get plus 12 points from a Marvel Boy or plus 12 on Athena or Havoc now, since they're both getting plus 3. I'm honestly pretty surprised that Mr. Fantastic is still performing well here, and I would love to hear in the comments down below if you've played this archetype, if he's still adding value here, or if the rest of the deck is carrying his slightly dead weight. Leading into last week's OTA, something I had said multiple times was that I was expecting something in the Fenris Wolf Mercury Cannonball package to get a little bit of a haircut and lose stats, and then I was pretty surprised when it didn't happen. Unsurprisingly, the other 3 decks in our top performing category today are all leveraging this core. You have things like Gladiator and Killmonger as additional ways to blow things up, with this particular build even going so far as playing Death, since you're going to be destroying cards on both sides of the board pretty frequently. Mercury Cannonball Fenris Wolf is probably just one of the most efficient 3-card stat packages in the game, with Mercury Cannonball giving you 10 points in one lane, and then whatever you blow up in another, popping up with Fenris Wolf to allow you to have big numbers there as well. These 3 cards are very capable of winning games with Marvel Snap on their own, and when you add in all the other disruption numbers that this deck can pump out, you end up with something that's pretty hyper consistent. If you're not into playing cards like Yondu and Baron Zemo, another one of the top performers leveraging this core package is playing our current season pass card, although I don't think he's 100% necessary here. You could definitely play a different 6-drop such as Red Hulk or Magneto at the top end of the curve. This is again just playing that hyper efficient Fenris Wolf, Cannonball, Mercury package along with some other ways in Warhead Gladiator and Shang-Chi to break your opponent's stuff over the course of the game. This deck list is incredibly disruptive and destructive, and I would wager one of the best you can be playing in Marvel Snap right now. Our final top performer today is kind of a more toxic version of the first deck that we opened on, which is Misery Victoria Hand Stuff. Instead of doing more interesting, proactive things with Moon Girl and Luna Snow, this build is just leaning full on in on that pretty strong Fenris Wolf package. It's notable that this one is not playing the Cannonball Mercury stuff like the two before it, instead leaning on Killmonger, Teenage Warhead, Shang-Chi, and Gladiator to consistently get you extra points of power with Fenris Wolf. Fenris honestly just might be one of the best 2 energy cards in the game in terms of providing raw stats right now. While it does take up 2 board slots and the location that it's at, it's often pumping out double-digit points of power, rewarding you for playing other cards that are already pretty good, like Shang-Chi. One thing perhaps worth calling out here is that there's a stark absence of movement cards after they reworked that package of things. It's also worth acknowledging that that archetype isn't always a top tier performer, although it does pop up from time to time. But when I was pouring through all the most competitive slices, I look at data to make videos like this, the move stuff was really pretty struggling, with things featuring Red Wing actually being the best among them, dropping large things like Infinite and Galactus first steps into play. As always, I would love to hear from you all in the comments down below what deck lists you've been enjoying, and if you want to see me play with a number of these decks, especially Jeff's picks at the start of the video, make sure you check out the link to my daily deck highlights channel, where there's already some fantastic post OTA gameplay up there. As always, if you enjoyed my roundup today, smash the like button. I appreciate everybody who made it all the way through to the end of the video today, and I hope your next snap pack is an excellent one.